It's the How to Write Funny podcast. I'm Scott Dickers. I'm here today with veteran stand-up comic, writer, and TV star Louie Anderson. Was it always stand-up for you, Louie, or did you start off wanting to do something different?
Politics.
You wanted to do politics.
Yeah.
How did that manifest exactly?
I don't know. I wanted to be president, I guess.
You're talking about like first grade or?
No. But as soon as I figured out who had the power, I was interested in that because I came from a powerless place in my family.
Yeah. So how long was that interest real, and how long was it?
Yeah, I went to school for a little bit. Antioch in the 70s set up these late 60s and early 70s, these communiversities in the poor areas. And they had these satellite schools, which were very left-wing, run by Glenn Davis and her husband. Glenn was kind of like an Angela Davis type person, but an educator. And her husband was, she was black and he was a white lawyer. And they were inspiring, and they wanted to save the world, I think. And they wanted to empower people who were poor, and they talked seriously about politics and about corruption and all those things. And, I grew up in the projects and grew up really poor and grew up a Democrat. And so I said, oh, yeah, they're right.
So was your family that left, or were they just sort of like middle of the road kind of labor Democrats?
Whenever you're poor, you're left.
Yeah.
I just don't know any poor people who are right wing.
Yeah, there are more
because
now.
When you're
seems.
poor, maybe, but they aren't really poor. And if you're really poor, you see every ugly flaw that people have. You see it all. You're around it. You're in it. You're part of it. And so it's, it's hard to, you grew up in the projects and you're going up to the office or the community thing up there and asking them if you can do things. So you resent authority at a very early age. When we lined up for school, the project kids were in one line and the others were in another line. So
oh, wow.
All the kids who lined up in the projects had the same coat on because they got vouchers to get them at a certain store.
That's awful.
Well, it's nice that we had coats.
Yeah.
You have to look at it. I don't think people purposely did that kind of stuff. I don't think anybody purposely did that. I think they thought, hey, we're getting them coats. What else do they want? I think people in general, when they're not poor, are annoyed to no end by poor people.
Yeah.
They think, well, why can't they get it together? What's wrong with them? So I always saw that great disparaging, things ended. I can't say the word because I'm getting older. So when you get old, all the words aren't available to you. I just want to give you a preview of that.
Thank you.
So I saw that big gap always.
But it seems like it comes from such a serious place. It seems like a chasm between that and...
Yeah, but all comedy comes from a serious place. The only reason that people start laughing is so they don't start crying.
Yeah, no, I think laughing and crying are very similar on the involuntary emotional expression spectrum.
The absurdity of the fact that we had to hide our color TV in the closet because of the welfare lady who, even though my dad worked, we had 11 kids, so we didn't have enough money to do anything. She would come and check on us to make sure that we weren't living high off the hog. We had to hide. We had to hide the colored TV that my dad got at the dump that he fixed. We had to hide it in the closet. Otherwise, we'd have to sell it. They weren't allowed to have a colored TV.
Yeah.
Or else they wouldn't give us the $53 a month for the rent.
The approach that you took to these issues was such a serious approach. with the politics and the, helping communities. It seems like a chasm to me in the same person to say, maybe I won't do this. Maybe I'll tell jokes.
Yeah, but
But maybe you can walk us through that transition.
I did comedy on a dare. It's really, that's the transition, believe it or not. I was at a club in Minneapolis having a drink after work, and there were these guys doing comedy in our bar on a Monday night. And I said, these guys are terrible. Just because they were interrupting me. I wasn't even really listening to their comedy. I just said, they're terrible. My friend goes, well, you think you're so funny. Why don't you try it? I go, well, I will. And then I signed up the next week and I went and did it. I had all my friends and family down and went up on stage and performed, wrote a bunch of jokes. And I don't know. It just came just like that. I think I wasn't afraid to try stuff. So I said,
how old were you at that point?
5. No, I was 25.
Okay.
24 or 25. I think 25.
And you had primarily just been sort of doing that political type of work, or did you also have some...
I was doing social work, which is just like political work, isn't it?
Yeah. What kind of social work?
I worked at an emergency shelter, and I worked at a group home, and because I got in trouble when I was a kid, and I had a really good probation officer, and so he helped me, so that made me want to help people.
What kind of trouble did you get in?
I was selling stolen snowmobiles that these guys were stealing.
The other people stole them, you just sold them.
Yeah, I got caught, and I turned everyone in.
Oh, wow.
And
you pay a price for that with the other guys, or?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. They were all the ones. We were all pretty young, so you get off easy when you're younger, and then the guys who were criminals already might have gotten some trouble, but I don't know. I never got any repercussions from it that I know of.
And this is an urban, like St. Paul, or are you sort
East side St. Paul, kind of where we were then. East was side. Kind of a nice area. We rented a house, and the landlord he had stuff in the garage, so I put the snowmobiles in the garage. And then the cops followed somebody back to my house that had the snowmobile. He wasn't supposed to bring it back. I go, whatever you do, don't bring this back. He brought it back, and the cops arrested me, and I get in trouble, and I was on probation. And I had quit school, and that probation officer got me to go back to school, and I graduated, and I was the first boy to graduate in my family. And so he turned my whole life around. I'm still friends with him.
That's great.
I believe in destiny. I was destined to do all this stuff.
Most successful people do.
Yeah, I think we're just destined, because what's the chances of me going to that club and those guys doing comedy and me doing comedy and then being really good the first night and going, no, this is fun.
Yeah, no, it's a very positive outlook to have. And that's one thing I want to talk about is the positivity that you exude. I think it's a big part of your comic point of view and just a big part of your vibe. You're a guy who's just like got a really big heart, and it comes through in all your comedy, and it feels so genuine. And now listening to a little bit of your backstory, it makes sense because you have this passion for helping people, and you turned your life around. So, it seems like you understand and accept people no matter where they are in life because you've been there. How big a part of your success do you think has been the heart, or do you think it's all just the great jokes?
Nah, I think that my act has always been secondary to, I think I'm still doing social work.
Yeah.
I think my heart is still, my mom and dad, even though my dad was a monster in a lot of ways, he was a sick monster, so he had greatness in him, but alcohol just destroyed him. and destroyed us. And
how was he not drunk?
he was just, wished he were drunk, I think.
Oh, wow.
He was remorseful and regretful and all that stuff, but it didn't really matter,
Right.
I mean, it was temporary, but they were always generous, even in their drunkenness. My mom was never drunk, but they were generous. Like if we go get groceries, my dad and mom would have a bag that was at the end of the thing that was for someone else. Even if we didn't have much, we would drop a bag of groceries off to some other family. So they were good people. They were just good. My dad really was the kind of guy who'd give you, if he had $3, he might give you two of them. He was just that kind of person. And so I learned all that generosity through them.
Now, was your mother an enabler, or was she as tortured as
Yeah.
your kids?
Well, she was an enabler with great potential. I mean, you don't put up with an alcoholic and raise 11 kids, and she never gave up. She was if that makes sense to you, she never gave up. I mean, my dad quit drinking when he was 69, and she turned to me and said, "I told you he'd quit."
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that sums it all up right there. But she was a tremendous woman with a tremendous amount of hope and compassion. And she was very smart. She could have been something. She could have been, a very successful woman in her own right. And she was. I mean, she was, our mom.
Yeah. How many kids did she raise?
11.
And where are you in that pecking order?
Kent.
Okay, so a lot of the time it was just you and your younger brother in the house.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we had you grow up in 3 families when you have a 20-year span.
Yeah, yeah.
You have the oldest group, you have the next oldest group, you have and then the young kids, the middle kids, and the oldest kids.
Right.
So, people say, what's it like to grow up in a big family? And I always think it's the dumbest question ever. Don't you?
I mean, I don't get the question.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It's like growing up in your family, but add more people. Come on. Come on. Dynamics in the family always been a great interest to me. I'm working on a thing that's all about family, a script, and it's really good because now I'm at an age where I really understand every dynamic and all the things that I saw and all the things that I see, because that family system is what you spend your whole life recreating, denying, or succumbing to.
Yeah, it shapes you in so many ways.
Yeah, it shapes you, misshapes you,
Yeah.
and all kinds of things. But if people are stupid, if they think, I shouldn't say stupid, misinformed, if they think that they will ever be able to completely, I mean, you have to do so much work to get outside of that gravitational pull of that family system.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree even.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny apple story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So my dad, he drove a dump truck sometimes. He worked for this construction worker, right?
Okay.
So we had an apple orchard that lived by our house, a guy who had apple trees in his house. And my dad would, at night, drive the dump truck near the apples, right, underneath the tree. And then my brothers would shake the tree and empty all the apples into the dump truck. And then the guy would come out shooting at them. But we had apples.
Yeah.
We had apples. Wow. And we gave them away, and people made pies. And, it was really quite a fun thing. It was such a kind of a dangerously fun thing for some apples.
Right.
So I always buy apples when I go to the store.
Well, you do a lot of family, and there's a lot of family stories in your work, not just in your stand-up, but in your books. You just did a book about family. F is for family, and now you're working on a script. Is this a screenplay or like a TV
A TV
project?
drama is one of my things on my bucket list, is to do successful, or at least get it made.
Yeah.
A, a TV 1 hour drama, because I'm such a big fan of 1 hour dramas. So I think 1 hour dramas, a lot of people escape and try to live in those 1 hour dramas and try to figure out their life through those 1 hour dramas, because I think people are constantly trying to figure out their life and trying to make it better and trying to fix things that are broken.
Yeah. How does your family feel about you using so much of your own family material and by extension theirs in your work?
Well, I heard a lot of people's feelings in the last book, and so I would never write another book like that again.
Oh, okay.
I regret that book.
So now do you fictionalize, or how do you do, because it's hard to be honest and not use stuff.
Oh no! And in a not 1 hour drama, you can change everybody around, but people are always going to think they're the people because they're egotistical and they're wrong. But people are always going to think they're the people.
That's true.
And paranoia runs in my family, so I'm not sure that you're not recording me right now. That was a joke. But it's just the idea of, you know what I mean? When there's paranoia in the family, or when you grow up poor, people constantly take advantage of you, that doesn't leave you very easily. It's a really ironic thing, but it doesn't. And so, but I've made amends on as much of that stuff with my family as I can. And I'm excited about going to a reunion in a few weeks that my nephew and his wife have planned, and I'm really excited about it because they planned it. I didn't have anything to do with it. I just get to be a participant with it, and it's really exciting because I'm really excited about seeing everybody.
Yeah, so you'll see all of your siblings. Your parents are no longer with us.
Yeah,
right?
and 6 of my siblings are dead.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
You'll see a lot of cousins and siblings.
Yeah,
and
I'll see all their children, and in turn, I'll see them because, in my family, there's strong resemblance.
Okay.
Like, my brother's kids look like my brother, and my sister has a daughter who looks just like her. And it's just ironic, to see those people and go, oh, you're just like your dad. You're just like your evil brother. But I mean, but I'm really happy to see them all. And I try to be a really positive influence. I try to be the most loving, positive person I can be to those people.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. That's great. I'm curious about your process, like when it comes to writing jokes for an act. Do you have a certain process that you use, or do you kind of go with your gut on what you think is funny? Or?
Here's my process. I'll do a joke that's a new joke that I'm working on. I was just in Cleveland, and everybody's happy LeBron's back. I go, I've never seen people happier for someone returning to a town. A friend of mine there is getting divorced when I left, and when I came back, I said, did you get divorced? And he goes, no. LeBron came back, and if I could forgive him, I guess I could forgive her. And, that is, to me, the kind of joke I really love, that the guy is so happy that LeBron returned. The city's so happy that LeBron returned. And I'll just show you how all these jokes went together. And that, to me, gets a big laugh, when I say, oh, no, we didn't get divorced because if I could forgive LeBron, because that's how mad people were at LeBron. And so then I go, and I know what it's like to be from a sports town that doesn't win all the time. I'm from Minnesota, and people will find out you're from Minnesota because I go, guys are sick with sports. We think differently about it than women do. And then somebody will go, you're from Minnesota? And they're already laughing. I go, yeah. You got the Vikings, right? And then you think to yourself, I will kill you because I've seen Game of Thrones. And then that's a bit that turned into a bit. Now the bit is, I never think of killing people till I'm either in a sports situation or watching the Game of Thrones. I mean, I never think of killing people. I'm watching Game of Thrones and I go, kill him. Kill him. I don't care if he is 11 years old. Kill him. And I go, I don't think I could live back there. I don't think I could live back there. It's so dirty back in those times. I mean, during the show, I'm using hand sanitizer. And then I do that, that visual of that. And I go, I just can't imagine, hey, you're walking in the house and going, oh, is there anything we can do with all this mud? And then I go, I would be from the house of Swiffer because I could never live in that time. And that all that stuff worked off that one thing of people being so happy that LeBron was back.
Yeah.
And that's a brand new bit I've been doing every couple nights here at the Laugh Factory, working on. I'm going to do a new special on New Year's Eve in Minneapolis. I'm going to do a direct TV special.
Oh, great.
Live New Year's or the first or anyways, I'm really excited about it. And so what I'm trying to do is some new jokes, some different stuff, and that's my process. Is that what you meant?
Well, yeah. So it sounds like you work out jokes verbally and you try them in front of an audience. Is that sort of how you think?
Yeah, I try them right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try it right away. I never I used to do brand new jokes on the Tonight Show that I didn't get cleared. Even though, I'd throw a brand new joke in just because I believe that you have to be brave with your jokes. Otherwise you won't write enough.
Well, you obviously have a lot of accumulated wisdom about stand-up, and I want to talk to you about the stand-up boot camp project that you had there for a while. I don't know if it's still going on.
It is not, but I do I still do mentor comedians, but I would never do it in that process again. I learned a lot in that process.
Yeah, I mean, how was the experience overall in terms of the mentoring and the teaching, not necessarily the method, I don't know if it was an administrative thing or what it was, but was that a rewarding thing to be a teacher? Yeah.
I love that. But I realized two things. Comics are really lazy, and they will never listen to anyone else. They rarely listen. And so if they aren't coming to you asking, don't bother.
But didn't they sign up for the boot camp?
Yeah, but those people all wanted it, but they didn't follow through. Only a few people followed through in the work.
Yeah.
It's hard to follow through. It's hard to be a comic. It's not an easy job. It takes a long time.
Yeah. It's a tough job. It's a tough life. The hours are hard. But you've always been such a hard worker. You've always really put in the hours, and that must be in some ways infectious when you're a mentor. People see that, that's a key ingredient. You really have to put your nose to the grindstone here.
I guess what I'm most successful at is to say to people, here's what you're doing wrong. Try this, and here's why it will work. And then when they have that success, they come back for more info. Because, people are oftentimes just making tiny mistakes.
They just need a tweak or something, right?
Yeah. We all just need to be tweaked, don't you think, honestly? I mean, don't you think in life?
It's so hard to hear those. We don't see the flaws, so when we get those tweaks, people they can't hear those.
It is, you should work really hard, and you're right, but that's what I was saying about people don't really want any help, and they certainly don't want to thank you for any help you've given them. They're really not very gracious comedians. They're not very, they're really selfish and self-centered, me included, and so full of ourselves.
Why do you suppose that is? Why does that go in hand with comedy?
Because it takes such concentration and single-mindedness to do what we do. It isn't to hurt you that I'm so self-centered. It isn't to not be good, a good partner, a good husband or wife. It has nothing to do with, nobody's thinking I'm trying to be a bad, all those things. It's just that if you ever tried stand-up, you would understand how there is hardly any room for anything else. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I mean, we become egomaniacal about it. All the really great comics and all the great entertainers are pretty egomaniacal, I would imagine, because it takes such a just go back to that single-mindedness. I mean, I think that says it all. And when you're single-minded, you're not interested in taking into consideration other people's feelings or their desires or their needs or any of that.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic in your case because, like you said, you think you're doing therapy. Like you believe you're giving back. You're actually doing something for people. But in order to give them that, you need to also shut them out. It's like a one-way conduit.
Well, I don't think you're intentionally shutting them out. I think it's really important for people to get an actual landscape of what comedy is. Comedy is really specific, and it's like any artist. I think they're really unreasonable when they're in their process. It isn't personal. They just need it. They need to be. I can't create a great thing in a conversation with you. You might give me an idea, and I will use it. But you know what I mean? In my process, I'm going to. You could get shunned. You could get forgotten about. You could get dismissed. Not intentionally, but just because the process is so demanding. The art is so selfish. But, on the other hand, comedians are very generous, loving, giving people on their own terms. Unfortunately, you know what I mean? They don't do it. I don't know. They're just such a funny thing because, it's almost like a dichotomy. And I'm probably not doing the clearest job of explaining this to people. And they're probably thinking, what is he talking about?
I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about people in entertainment have this drive to communicate their world through jokes, by entertaining people, which is very one-sided, and that's all consuming. So sometimes when you're not in that context, if you're just at a family barbecue or whatever, you're going out with friends for dinner or whatever, that can be frustrating. Like for me as a comedy person, it's almost like dead time for me because I'm so obsessed and single-mindedly focused on my work that this is like, wait, I'm not doing my work right now. I'm obsessed. So all that makes sense to me is focusing on the obsession,
So you have to learn how, and which I've become much more, I think, much more healthy about is I can go have fun. I can go enjoy it.
You can turn the switch off for a little bit. And be a human being.
I just give it a break. I just go, listen, just be nice and be good to these people. They don't be selfish. Don't be on during this dinner. Don't be rude. Don't be, Do
you have to make a conscious effort to not be on?
I think you have to, because I'm so funny. I don't mean it in an egotistical way, but I
didn't take it.
I can take control of that conversation and just really make a funny statement almost off everything people say because I've always been fairly quick. I've always been spontaneous, and I used to do that without even. I didn't really have material a lot of times. I go out and just work the crowd, but then I got off that because you can only, for the most part, you can only be mean doing that. And I didn't really have any desire to be mean.
Because you're making fun of somebody or something.
Yeah. Somebody has to be the butt of that joke. You know?
Right. Did you ever have this feeling when you're in a normal, regular person conversation and you don't feel like being funny, you're just being normal, and that sort of screws with people's expectations of you because they're like, hey, I thought he was supposed to be funny. He's just kind of a regular guy. Then do you sort of turn on the funny for them? Or you know what I'm saying?
No, I never, I hate that. Because I can be a really serious person. I can be a super, super serious person, and I can hold any conversation, I believe, and I can be interested in things and all that. If I'm in a serious mood, people, I've had that where they try to get you to be funny.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful. I have to be careful I'm not mean to them then.
Yeah.
It's easy to be mean to people.
Right. Yeah, no, it's so interesting to hear you define your default comedy groove as mean, because I think your comedy is known for being very family-oriented, family-friendly, and kind of self-effacing, just, the opposite of mean. You're like the nice guy.
Yeah. But, I have friends who go, you're being mean. And I go, oh, am I? Because I don't know I'm being mean.
You just thought you were having fun.
No, I think that comics have a lot of contempt. I think any great comic has a fair amount of contempt.
Yeah, I think you have to have contempt. You have to have some passionate opinion about something. It's usually negative, and you turn that into comedy.
Or you could look at it this way. It isn't necessarily negative. It's just truthful. People give this thing as saying, hey, you're being so negative. And you want to go, hey, I'm being truthful.
Yeah.
You really are lazy. You really refuse to do the work that you're supposed to do. So if you want somebody who's going to tell you how great you are, well, that isn't me. But if you really want to accomplish something, you aren't going to do it being the person you are right now. I've had that conversation many a time with comedians. They either can handle it or they can't. And the ones that scamper away, I feel sad for them. But I appreciate the fact that they know they're not, I don't take them seriously then. I've had a few comedians who I've really tried to be honest with, and they'll have nothing to do with it. They're my friends, and I want to help them with their act because I care about them. And they think they're great. They think they're doing great. And I just go, I want to say to them, but I just don't. I want to go, you're considered a buffoonish to people. People are making fun of what you do on stage, but I don't.
Yeah, because that can be tricky because you want to help.
That could crush somebody.
Totally, yeah.
I don't want to crush anyone.
There's obviously a real trick to giving people feedback and advice, and there's a way to encourage people and still give them helpful advice. Does that just feel dishonest to you? Is there
really a way?
I feel like there is.
Scott,
yeah.
Is there a way? But wait a minute, Scott. Is there a way I can help you without being completely honest with you? Is there really? I just want you to be completely honest about this, Scott.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about not being honest. I'm talking about acknowledging, because you said like when something's negative, then that's just the truth. But you can look at the world and you can see a lot that's negative, but you can also see a lot that's positive. So, and by focusing on the negative and pointing that out, you're being truthful, but you're ignoring the stuff that's positive. Same with a person. So if a person is doing some things good and some things not so good, by giving them a little bit of the honey and saying, you did this well, you did this well, you did this well, here's a couple of things you can work on. It's spinning feedback, and some people are great at that sort of thing. They'll disagree with you and tell you you're stupid by complimenting you over and over. And I hate that kind of parsing, but I don't think to do that in a straightforward and honest way, I don't think that's dishonest. But I was just asking if you thought that was, and maybe
I don't know. I
do.
mean, no. I mean, I didn't mean to. What I was trying to get you, where I was trying to get. I always think partial truth it could be dangerous.
How so?
I mean, partial truth to maybe what you're doing, maybe what you're talking about is that you give people as much information as you think they can handle, and then hopefully they'll see the rest of it when they get there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because I think the straight, no holds barred feedback for a fellow artist, comedian, performer is going to be probably less harsh than what a real audience is going to think of their work, because those people don't care at all. They'll say, "You suck," or whatever. And
that's the cruelest one.
By giving somebody honest feedback, in a way, you're helping them better prepare for a real audience reaction. So,
well, then why would you not agree with me that's really how you should do it with comics too?
I think it's a little different because a comic is more than just the material. It's their personhood as well. They're up there as themselves.
So the writer is not just the material. How many writers can take all that in and still not remember every single mean thing that people said to them? I mean, most writers remember that mean stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a little easier for a writer than for a performer.
It all depends. Maybe you're right, but it all depends on your tone,
sure,
and your intent. Because sometimes people can give people feedback and just go, "Hey, your whole act." Like I said that to somebody once, and I regret it. I go, "All your material sucks. You should just get rid of every bit of it and start over." We're really good friends now, but that devastated that person. They started crying, and I go, and that is what I have to be careful of, because, even though I was right about it. No, I don't know. Maybe I was wrong about it, but what I was trying to do is make a point of, you're on the wrong track, but I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been so, I shouldn't have been so cruel and so, mean, because that's mean.
Yeah, and you have to realize the power of
That's really true. I think you might be right, but I don't know. I have writer friends, and they bring up when you tell them something about their writing, like you have to make sure that they're really prepared to hear the truth. Because I'm a really pretty good editor when I read something, and people will ask me, and I go, "Well, you're just, cut this out. This isn't any good." And that isn't, I've been trying to be better about that. But, I hardly ever give people any feedback anymore unless they really, really ask for it.
Yeah, no, that's the only way to do it.
Because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't have any desire to hurt anybody except the guy who makes fun of the Vikings, like I said.
Right. But at this point, you have to realize your own power. Somebody who's a celebrity is an intimidating opinion to hear. Yeah.
Which I would like to tell people to stop putting people in that position, because it doesn't help either
clearly
of them.
Yeah. How has that been for you? You've been a celebrity, probably recognized on the street every day for decades now. That's hard, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I can't really, I don't, only when I'm grumpy.
Yeah, because then you have to muster the good cheer for the fans, right?
I'm always nice. I always am nice. Or I say to them, "I'm really grumpy. I'm sorry, but I'm a little grumpy today," and then I get right out of it. And I try not to say ever, "I'm really grumpy," or "I'm busy," or because this is an important thing for them, and I have no right to dismiss them. I have no unless they're drunk. I don't. I draw the line at people on drunk or on drugs. I draw the line there.
That makes sense.
My dad was a drunk, and I won't have anything to do with it.
Well, Louie, you early on, you used a lot of your own kind of
fat jokes.
I was going to say your own weaknesses. You certainly used a lot of fat jokes, but just your weaknesses as a human being and your.
I'm proud of all those. I'm proud of all those great fat jokes,
ought to be.
Man. Those are the greatest.
But you
people have been stealing those jokes for years.
I'm sure.
Which is fine. I'm happy. I'm honored by it.
You've used a lot of your human weakness as a sort of foundation of your own comedy and your troubled childhood. But as a person, you seem very well put together, very emotionally healthy. Has that been a lot of work? Or am I fooled?
Yeah.
You're a hardworking, successful guy, and you're not a drunk. You seem to have avoided all the pitfalls of.
Well, I had my bouts with everything, Scott. I went through all that stuff. I went through everything that most people go through that are addicts. I went through all of that. I could have become any of that, but luckily, I didn't become all of that.
When was it? Was that like in the?
I did a lot of therapy, 80s, 90s, different periods of my life, where I would do that. I would slip into those places because I wasn't working hard enough. Anytime I got in trouble, with drugs or alcohol or any of that kind of stuff, is when I stopped believing in myself. Because every time I have rallied to believe in myself, there has been a response to it. And so I am really lucky and fortunate that when I have worked, the work has been there for me. So I am grateful and humbled by, the universe and God and whoever set this course up for me. I'm sorry that I had taken so many detours, but in those detours, I learned a great deal, so I think people should to not be so hard on themselves, but that's what my podcast is about, the Louie Anderson podcast. And I have a feeling it's about what your podcast is about, Scott. It's the journey. I always tell comedians, don't be too anxious to become famous, because then a giant light is shone upon you that illuminates all the parts of you, and you may not be ready for all those parts to be illuminated. And so all the journey is what I celebrate now in my life. The great journey I have been lucky enough to be on.
Yeah, no, and I enjoy your podcast. Mine is a little more focused on process, but journey is kind of integrated with that a lot of the time.
Well, I never was a very good student. I could be doing process too and not even knowing that.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, it's instinctive for a lot of people, so it's fun to kind of crack that egg with people. But what is your, speaking of process, what is your rallying process when you're down the wrong road or you're getting sucked into some bad behavior? What's your method for rallying yourself and believing in yourself? A lot of people find that incredibly challenging.
Good friends who go, "What the F are you doing?" That's usually, always try to have a good friend or two who care more about you than you do at certain times. That's crucial. And also, I think, I am actually, at the end of the day, a honestly hopeful and optimistic person. So I pull myself out of it and go, "Louie, that's it. You're not doing this anymore. What's wrong with you?" But it was fun. I could escape. I liked it over there. I like it being in a swamp. I like to be in a dark, shallow swamp with the water almost drowning me. I liked it. Why can't I be in there? No one bothers me in there except guppies. I think that there's a part of me that, and a part of all of us, that goes, stop this, And I think that's what we used to look towards for adults and mothers and fathers and good people around us. And, I'd like to say this to the world: stop this. All this terrible things that we're doing to each other, stop that. And so I think that part of me pulls me out. And then also I go, oh, this is some new material, So I think what happens to me, Scott, is I love more than drinking. I love more than drugs. I love life more than those things. So I stopped them, and I've been lucky enough to where they didn't kill me.
Boy, you have had some good therapy.
I really have. I've gone to some of the best therapists, and you don't have to go to therapy forever. You just go for a few times. Every time you need therapy, if you could jump into therapy for a little while at intervals in your life, you just do need it, because you need somebody who's objective and who goes, what are you talking about? There's nothing there that you're talking about. That's silly. You're great. Am I? Thank you. I so appreciate it. How great am I? Well, you're not that great. I didn't think so. But I was hoping. But you're great. Am I? Thank you.
And your work is a big therapeutic thing for you, too, it sounds like. You turn to work for comfort.
Yeah.
And for self-assurance or self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people write me letters and say, I make a difference to them and their family, or them or something. And do you know how big it is to sit down and write a letter and mail it? And you know how big it is to even write an email where you are thanking somebody? That must, how many of those have I written? I've written a few, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, even when you love something, sometimes you're not moved to actually write it down.
Yeah.
Send it.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's really true, you know what I mean?
It's a great gesture.
Hey, fresh fig growers. I love fresh figs.
Right. So,
I bet they don't get that ever.
No.
Your figs are outstanding.
Yeah. People ought to write more letters to the fig people.
I think so.
So I'm curious to know about your own family. Have you started a family?
I have not. I have not started a family.
It seems a little odd that you're so family focused in your material, and yet you are just a single guy.
Well, I mean, I won't talk to you about my personal life because I'm writing a book about it. So I don't want to get into those things, but I have people in my life, and I am not, I'm like I hate any of the labels, but I have people who I consider my family. So, and there's lots of, I have a group of, I have a group of people in comics around me that I really am close to, and that they're like, I mentor about 4 or 5 comics, and they're like my brothers or my kids, or like that. But I just want you to know I have a life. So.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I'm looking forward to that book.
Yeah. So is my publisher. So.
Yeah.
Don't you hate deadlines? Oh, I hate deadlines so much.
I wouldn't get anything done if I didn't have them. I do hate them, but they're necessary.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, I am writing another book too that I'm really excited about. Is on stand-up.
Oh, sort of putting your boot camp wisdom down on paper.
Yeah, the boot camp thing was a really great thing because it made me solidify. I mean, we got a lot of flack doing a boot camp. People say you can't teach comedy and all that, but I just didn't take any of that personal.
Well, it's not true anyway.
Yeah, but also I mean, you can't make somebody funny, but you can teach people how to do, or at least how to do what they do better.
Yeah, you can give them the best chance.
Yeah, but so I'm excited about that because I mean, I really think that if I do have one thing I can do in my life, one thing is I am really, really good at stand-up comedy. And I am getting better. So that's the exciting part of this book is I am getting better at stand-up comedy. And do you know what I'm finding out?
What's that?
I'm finding out that I was the best at the very beginning and that I slowly drifted away from that. And that is all about the fundamentals. And that has really been fascinating to me is that I drifted away from my tremendous instincts that I had as a young comic.
Yeah, that can happen. That's interesting. So you're kind of always chasing, like, what was I doing then? That was so great. And then,
Well, what I was doing then what I'm doing now that I wasn't doing then, I was thinking.
yeah,
I'm thinking now, and before I never thought about it. I just went and did it.
yeah.
I wrote down, this is great. I wrote, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. Go do it, and put everything into it. And now I have to stay away from myself with the process. I'm getting back into just go do it. You're a great stand-up comic. You know?
Yeah, no, I totally hear you.
It's so easy to lose your focus, you know? Finding the joy in my comedy again has been just the most fantastic thing in the world, Scott.
That's great. Well, Louie, thanks for your time. It was great talking with you.
Hey, thank you. I had a great time.
If you like the How to Write Funny podcast, you'll love the How to Write Funny website. Check it out, howtowritefunny.com.